All right.
We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, coaches. Welcome. This week's episode, we are going to discuss the top 5 coaching tweets of the month that I've gathered up. Also, I am going to share a tip with you when it comes to copying other coaches that you see, copying their strategies, their practice strategies, their practice plans, etc. And lastly, I have an interview. I got an interview today for you. I sat down and had a really good discussion with the founder, one of the co-founders of the PLAYMAKER app, Joe Pace. And Joe sat down with me. We had a discussion about how this app, PLAYMAKER, follows the 80-20 principle. And all you got to do is look at the title of the podcast to know that I'm a big fan of any company, any coach, any entity, any person that's following the 80-20 principle as an overarching guideline. It should not be that being the 80-20 principle should not be the only path, the only strategy, the only tactic, the only way in which we go after our coaching game and our life and things like that, but definitely should be at the forefront of something that guides us, guides our paradigm, the 80-20 principle. And Joe, he sits down with me, talks about this new app that just came out for baseball coaches, for parents, for softball coaches, for parents of softball players. It just came out. I tested it out. You're going to hear all about that. I'm a big fan of it, and you'll hear my recommendation on that in just a little bit. First, if you have not gone to the 80-20 Baseball website, go there, get your drill guide, the 8 steps to creating a really solid drill. It's right there. It's free. There's a dozen plus videos, a dozen articles. There is the recording for the fall coaching webinar where we discuss batting practice plan, we discuss throwing routine, we discuss the dynamic warm-up. You get access to all that. We have the pitching webinar that we just hosted last month. We break down the main parts of pitching delivery, bullpen setup, and that pitching webinar is loaded with information, tips, strategies to coach your pitchers better. All of this is focused mostly straight towards the youth baseball coach and youth baseball team. Of course, all of it could be used at any level. Baseball is baseball, but that is what it's designed for, all of you youth baseball coaches. You will also find a team rules guide print ready to use, plug and play rules guide. It's got everything you need. Also, that comes with a bonus, a team culture guide that really dives in deep into creating and building a better team culture so your season is not a nightmare. That's available all on the website. Go check out 8020baseball.com. Just go check it out. I promise you will learn a ton when you're over there. You're going to become a better coach by stopping by there. It's a lot. It might take you 2 or 3 trips, but definitely this is the time of year to get over there and check all that out. Now, top 5 tweets of the month. Number 1 comes from Tom House. Tom House is an ex-Major League Baseball player, an ex-Major League pitching coach, an ex-college pitching coach, and he works as a quarterback coach right now with the who's who, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Brees. I know those 2 have recently retired, but those are 2 of his clients, or should I say ex-clients. He's the who's who when it comes to quarterback coach, and he's got a resume. I remember when I first started coaching pitching, I shouldn't say first, about my 2nd or 3rd year of coaching, I really started to consume Tom House books, Tom House material. And I remember there was a stigma. There was a big stigma in the baseball community, the coaching community, especially the pitching community. If you said you're a Tom House guy, there was more likely than not, the person you were sharing that with or talking to was probably going to think you were part of a cult, a pitching cult that wasn't really going to yield results, was a flash in the pan kind of way of going about coaching pitching, yada. And I remember having to almost kind of wait to tell people if I was talking with coaches, other pitching coaches. I had to kind of work that in a little slower, wait till they said that they were Tom House fans. And the phrase, are you a house guy? Are you a house guy? This was over 15 years ago when I would have conversations with coaches over a beer that said, hey, are you a house guy? But there was a stigma. There was a couple players that he coached that I think didn't pan out, but I don't think that was what he was coaching. I don't think that it was any of his fault. That was just coincidence. Can't blame every coach. You might have a player that gets injured. That's not your fault necessarily. In most cases, it's not. It's coincidence. Now, do coaches impact the health of players, the success of players? Of course. Or the failure of players? Of course. But I thought in a couple of these well-known circumstances, he got a bad rap, the short end of the stick when it came to that. Nonetheless, Tom House has become very popular within the baseball coaching community again and really blown up. He's always had good stuff to say. In fact, I sat there, it was 3 days or 4. I don't know if it was 4. This was about 10 years ago over at USC, University of Southern California. I went in and got the certification with the National Pitching Association. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun, and he led it, and it was great. I mean, his one-liners and things like that, it was a big time experience when it came to learning a lot of different things. As all that stuff panned out, all the stuff that I learned, some of it's evolved, some of it's improved, a lot of it's stuck, and it's really good stuff that'll probably be here for a long time when it comes to coaching pitching. And here's what he said, quote, especially when you realize that kids are hyper aware. So he was replying to a comment about a coach yelling, or it was, do we need to yell at players? And his response to this tweet from another coach about yelling at players was, quote, it's pretty astonishing, especially when you realize that kids are hyper aware when they're doing something wrong. They don't need it yelled. And I'm going to stop there. There's another sentence there, but that's the key right there. They're hyper aware when they're doing something wrong. Have you listened to this podcast? If you've been listening, you know we've talked about this. They're hyper aware. I think this is one of those big disconnects. One of the biggest disconnects with coaching is that coaches, most of us, myself when I started, and to this day, the majority of coaches think they have to tell the player that they screwed up for them to know that they screwed up. And I think it's quite the opposite. I think we need to give them the credit that they know they screwed up, and we don't need to overmanage, overcorrect, helicopter coach everything. I'm going to get into helicopter coaching and I think we discussed this a few months back, where helicopter coaching, being right there in the mix with your players, is one thing. Commenting on everything and leading them in everything and telling them how to do everything, that's a whole nother ball game. That's not where you want to be. But this yelling, they're hyper aware that they did something wrong for the most part. Of course, there are some players that don't get it. Their wherewithal is terrible. Their kinesthetic awareness is terrible. Their awareness just in life is not that great. We all know adults like that, and we have players like that. And those might be the players you need to coach a little more, guide a little bit more. But we don't need to yell. They're hyper aware when they're doing something wrong. So Tom House's tweet, I thought that was awesome. The next tweet came from Chaz Angelani. Chaz, if I'm messing that up, I apologize. Swinging the whole time is his quote. So he has a video. I know on podcasts this is tough, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but he has a video of Bryce Harper hitting, and it's an aggressive take. We talked about aggressive takes, hard takes, aggressive takes. So he's at the plate. He doesn't swing. It's a side angle of Bryce Harper not swinging. He's ready to hit, and then the ball's up. It's elevated out of the strike zone up above where he can hit it or drive or do anything with it, and he takes it. Quote is swinging the whole time. That was the quote, the tweet. Love that. Swing the whole time until we're certain the pitch is not in the hitting zone with less than 2 strikes, or in the strike zone or around the strike zone with 2 strikes. Tweet number 3 of our top 5 monthly tweets. This one was sent out by Trent Mongero. Trent said, advice I would give the younger me new into coaching. The younger me that was new into coaching. Don't live and die with every play. Don't live and die every win, loss, or umpire call. Be the same positive guy you were with the same body language always. Why? Because players deserve this from their coach. The game will beat them up enough. They don't need us to pile it on. All of you that are parents know they really just want consistency. They want consistency from their coach and their parents. They want some consistency. It doesn't have to be perfection, but it needs to be predictable for the most part. It needs to be predictable. That gives them a sense of grounding, a sense of anchoring to something that's stable in their life instead of chaos. So that tweet I thought was really good by Trent. Next tweet, this one by Jeremy Sheetinger. Coach Sheets. Quote, we are not coaching baseball. We are coaching baseball players. Their development, their performance, their careers is paramount to any win or trophy. People, build better people and watch how the game unfolds. Quote, unquote. That's a phenomenal tweet right there. We are coaching baseball players. Coaches, we're coaching baseball players, not baseball. And the last tweet by yours truly, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. And I added to that, but what clues are driving that success and to what degree? Question mark. Just because a great coach does something doesn't make it a great strategy. This is simply what is the foundation of a good study. Not every variable, not every factor, not everything involved in the study, or should I say, not everything is attributing to the outcome or the results. And that's why they do studies, to isolate the factors, the inputs, so they can really gauge and assess an accurate output and see how much is leading to that. So I said, we know success leaves clues, but what clues are driving that success and to what degree? Just because a great coach does something doesn't make it a great strategy. In likelihood, it probably is a good strategy or a great strategy if it's a great coach doing it, somebody who's had a lot of success over a lot of years specifically, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that it is a great strategy. I know a lot of great coaches. I've studied a lot of great coaches, and there are some things that they've done that I think would be subpar, sub-average. Now, most of the things they do is well above average and excellent in a lot of ways, and that's why they're great. But just because a great coach does something or coaches a certain specific thing a certain way doesn't make it a great strategy in and of itself. Adopting the commonalities of great coaches is the high percentage move. So adopt the commonalities of great coaches. That's the high percentage move. End tweet. So we got our top 5 tweets of the month. And now we're moving into part 2 here. A quick hitter. If all you do is copy other coaches and other teams, then you'll never separate your players and your team from them. Inherently, if all you do is copy and just borrow exactly what they're doing, if you copy all the coaches around you or in your league or in your community, if all you do is copy those coaches, you're probably going to be average, or you're probably going to be the average of all those coaches. You're not going to separate yourself, and inherently, you're not going to take advantage of the competitive advantages that are sitting right there in a sport that has lacked progress relative to so many other things in life. So just copying around you and not building on it, not adding to it with the things that you know, those first principles. I know for some of you, you're new to coaching, you don't really have any background with coaching. Okay, so start by just copying the commonalities of good coaches, great coaches, and go from there. But always look to improve, always look to get a little more efficient. Take the paradigm that we talk about in this podcast and add it to all the things that you're hearing. Go get the drill design guide. It's free. It's on 8020baseball.com, and that'll shape your paradigm on what a good drill needs to have. And you will see other good drills. You'll see good drills out there, and you'll go, wait, it can be improved. It can be improved in this area and that area if you know how to design a good drill in this case. But to the larger point, got to be careful just copying everybody. Typically, you're going to be behind. You're going to be late to the party if you're copying. Of course, inherently, that's going to be the case. And then you're just going to be the average. If you just copy all the coaches in your league and kind of copy what they're doing or copy the coaches you see around the baseball fields that you're at, then you're never going to separate. You're never going to improve beyond that. And there's a lot of competitive advantage. And there's a lot of things out there that could be improved upon for our players. They deserve this. And also, if you're just copying other coaches, you're going to follow their path, and their path may not always be the best path for the players. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get to talking tech, leveraging technology the 80-20 way, leveraging baseball technology the 80-20 way. Scorekeeping has been around forever and ever. Scorebooks, I was keeping score back in 1985, however many years ago that is, 36, 37 years ago, I was keeping track. I was scorekeeping at Dodger Stadium. But that was old school with a scorebook, and I stopped doing it because I was missing a lot of the game because I was buried in there trying to track every pitch, everything, this, that, and the other. We're going to discuss this. The PLAYMAKER app is that 80-20 scorekeeping app that is now available on the App Store. I'm not getting paid by them. I had Joe come on my show, Joe Pace, one of the founders. He's going to discuss, he's going to break it down. This is something I'm recommending coaches get. I get a lot of emails from coaches, from you coaches, asking me about certain products or certain things like, hey, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on this? Well, I'm bringing one to the table here that I'm recommending. Okay, I'm recommending you go get it. Again, I don't have any compensation at this time for it. I just really like the product. I love the idea of the scorekeeping app, the way they built it, the simplicity. I've tested it out. You're going to hear all about it. The tech on this product is phenomenal. The founders are sports guys. Joe coached Division I, Division III baseball, played baseball for a lot of years. So there's the sports background with the founders and the tech is really good. And I think the interview is good for you to listen to because it will give you an idea of how to best utilize this app. So you want to listen to it. Is this something for you? Listen to this. Listen to this 20-minute, 25-minute interview. If you like it, if it sounds good, go use it. If not, at least it gives you a background. It's like when I get an app for my phone or I get an app for my computer or software, I like to watch videos either from the founders, people that work at the company, or just third-party people. And I like to get a better idea by watching and listening to these videos or the podcasts as to, is this a good fit or not? Sometimes just going into it, you miss some of the things, some of the advantages, some of the benefits of the app, and you don't fully use the technology as best as it can be used. So with that said, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Bo.
Well, I'm really glad to have you here and share your message and give us the scoop on this app that you and your partner have developed. I get emails from listeners asking me to share my feedback, thoughts on a lot of products that are out there in the baseball community. And we have discussed on this podcast and reviewed a few products over the last couple of years, but I understand that great coaches like all you listeners are likely interested in ways to better serve your players, your kids, while trying to do it in your busy schedules, in your busy lives. And thus, there are certain products, things in the baseball community that can and will help us to be better coaches, better parents for our players, while also saving us time and leveraging technology. I'm a huge fan of using technology in so many of the good ways that it can help us, and leveraging technology in certain ways is definitely at the top of that list. So moving forward, I will be periodically adding segments into the show that discuss coaching products, baseball products that I've vetted, like this one, and I can vouch for, like Playmaker. With that said, I see a lot of products that I think are better left unused, while I do see some product services that are highly useful and can be leveraged to get better results, quality results much faster. And the first thing I always ask myself when I'm looking at a new product, so I'm looking at this product, Playmaker, first thing I ask is, does this product or does this service serve the baseball community in a way that aligns with our key goals, like here at 80/20 Baseball? And the second question I ask myself, is the product or service well thought out with regard to its combination of both effectiveness and simplicity? Does it align directly with the goals of 80/20 Baseball? And does it have a quick learning curve? How's the user experience? How's the UX? Here at 80/20 Baseball, we're about simplicity. As all you listeners know, we're about simplicity. And we don't just want to get simple for simplicity's sake. We want to combine it to get to the goal of being more effective also. And I think they go hand in hand. So how can we get the same result or even better results as coaches, parents, while doing it in fewer steps, faster and more efficiently? And after testing the ins and outs of Playmaker, I can say with confidence that this app has been well thought out, and we're going to hear more about it. So don't just take my word for it. You're going to hear about it from Joe. I think it's really well laid out. I'm just telling you, all you listeners, not because Joe's on the line here. I'm telling you, I can vouch for it. I went through every feature on it, and I can say with confidence that this app has been well thought out, well laid out. I'm very critical of technology, and I don't vocalize my criticism. I just keep it to myself, but I'm I'm definitely looking at it with a kind of a critic's eye when I see new technology, and it's got to be right. And this one, I see it as something that's right. Not only did I test out all the app's features, Joe and I spoke for almost an hour a few weeks back so I could better assess whether this was something that I wanted to bring to all you great listeners. So I want you to know that's why I started this, and I kind of front loaded this interview, this conversation with Joe with that. It has been vetted. I've talked with Joe, had a great discussion. And with that said, Joe, before you give us a scoop on Playmaker, maybe you can share with us a synopsis of your backstory, including how sports and coaching are and have been a big part of your life.
Thank you, Bo. And that intro was amazing. And to have your stamp of approval means so much. And thank you for that, first of all. Just to get a little background on me and my background with baseball. Yeah, lifer in baseball. I came up as a lot of people do, playing youth sports and youth baseball. And I always look back at my 9-year-old to 12-year-old baseball experience as really the pinnacle of my athletic career, even though I did end up playing college baseball and coached Division III and Division I college baseball. Literally the last trophy and the last championship I won was our A-League Pioneer League championship game. And that time really stuck with me and has always meant a great deal to me. And we can talk more about that in a little bit. But, myself, I'm a big baseball guy. My wife coaches college basketball, and my co-founder is actually a youth hockey coach. He's based in Texas and coaches youth hockey in Texas, which is its own story, but he's a big youth sports person. And, we just are both passionate about the youth sports space and see so much opportunity to improve it, help it, assist it, celebrate it. There's so much that can be done. And oftentimes youth sports don't always get the attention that they deserve. And it's where a lot of these formative experiences and memories are being formed. And we just feel like it's such a fun place place to be, operating and serving. So yeah, that's maybe just a quick background. Yeah, we can get into whatever's interesting there.
That's great. I think you summed it up really well. You're into sports. You've been into sports. It's just something that's part of your life. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go make this great app for what? What are you going to just pick, like kind of throw a dart at the board and just pick a segment or an industry? You really are committed. You really like the baseball world. It's a big part of your upbringing and your life now, and sports in general. And, hockey, I'll tell you what, that's one of those sports that I think every kid should be required to play a season of hockey when they're younger. I know there are some challenges with ice time and cost and things like that.
Yeah.
But man, over the years, I've worked with a lot of hockey players, kids that I've had as students, and they always seem to just on average have just a much tougher mindset. I hear CEOs and I hear hiring managers, and I read and hear these things that they're looking for more and more for people that were part of a team that played sports when they were younger, because they feel like that can be huge. They're hiring people, not necessarily a resume, not so much how many things they've done in the past in terms of the business world, but have they worked well with the team, or did they play sports when they were younger? With that aside, let's jump into Playmaker here.
Sure.
Goals for Playmaker. What are your goals? Why you started it, and what are your goals moving forward with the Playmaker app?
Yeah, totally. It's actually really simple. And I think this is something that my co-founder, Leland, and I talk about all the time is at the end of the day, we want to make little leaguers on the baseball and softball side feel like what they're doing on the field matters, and that it's something that is worth saving and worth recording and worth sharing with people outside of who maybe aren't able to attend the game. In some of the product testing, very early days before we even had any sort of designs or even prototypes, we went to a bunch of little league games, both on the baseball and softball side. And we noticed that there were so many players that maybe didn't have a ton of action during the game, right? Maybe they struck out twice and grounded out once. But for example, we saw a play where a left fielder just got a routine ground ball in the 5-6 hole, fielded it, threw it back to the cutoff man. And his dad was so excited and so pumped because that was the play that left fielder got that day. And he did his job. He fielded it cleanly, threw it into the cutoff man, did his thing. And to your point about team play, right? Like that matters. Being celebrated for doing your job and making a great play, even if it is routine, in our opinion, should be celebrated. And so, yeah, ultimately what we're trying to achieve in our long-term goals are to be essentially capturing these moments and saving these moments for people to look at in real time. Not only dad on the sideline can congratulate the little boy for his play, but then also maybe grandma and grandpa at home, or mom at home, or dad at home can check it out as well and celebrate him. Maybe they're more informed on how he's doing during the game, and can celebrate him and make him feel good and make him feel like what he's doing and what he's contributing is valuable. Yeah, I mean, ultimately our long-term goals are to celebrate these little players and make them feel like everything that they're doing matters, just even that little bit more.
Well, the next thing I wanted to break into, or the next thing I wanted to discuss, what is different about Playmaker app? I think we should probably maybe back up a second here and just give it a quick description. I think over a podcast, obviously we can't show it. I'll definitely put in a link to the app in the show summary for all of you listeners that you can just open up and you can go right to it. One thing I will say right up front, I'm going to say, now some of you might go to it and you might say, well, this is similar to something like Game Changer. First off, there's not a lot of apps in the baseball world that are worth the time or effort or energy or the money to go invest in or to get involved with or to use at this point. Hopefully that changes. And I think, Joe, I think you and your team are going to be a part of that moving forward. And I'm a huge fan of technology. I'm a huge fan of it when used in the right ways. And I think this is one of them. I love your goal of bringing together the family, kind of making it more cohesive. It's not like, oh, what happened? They share out. You can share out now. What is different to me, what really stood out was and you can hit on this, is the intuitiveness of this app. The intuitiveness, and I can just tell, I just looking at it, I'm like, and using it, I'm like, this is well thought out. This was well thought out from a lot of different angles and well thought out with the user, the coach, the parent, the players. This is well thought out from their perspective. And to me, that's a sign of a great product, a great app, or a great whatever, is did they think of the end user first? And that's what I saw. So what's different? I see that at the forefront. I think you guys are ahead of the curve, putting the user experience, whether that's a coach, an assistant coach, a parent, or what have you, you put that out in front. And to me, that's a deal breaker. If you don't have that in many products, many tech, they don't have that. I use a lot of tech throughout the day and I'm going, geez, the person that designed this didn't think of the person using it, or they don't use it themselves and they haven't used it, right? But with that said, what's different about Playmaker that stands out maybe from something like Game Changer? And we'll go from there.
To your point, I'll do just a quick little intro on what Playmaker is. It's a mobile scorekeeping app that allows coaches or any scorekeeper to track games and stats effortlessly. That is really a key term for us, effortless. And I also share stat casts of the game with those inputs. So every stat that you track with very few taps, we've minimized the number of taps required to track a play to somewhere between 1 and 2 taps per play. All of those become aggregate stats and cumulative stats for the individual players, for the team, for the season. And as you're inputting those stats, they become live casted to fans at home in the form of a box score, a play-by-play, and then also a live field view and live score view. So that's what the product is. But what makes us different is really that effortlessness piece and the intuitiveness piece, which you've really tapped into, Bo. And I am glad you noticed it because it's really something we spent a ton of time focusing on. The 1 to 2 tap piece to record a play is absolutely like by far the number one differentiator for the scorekeeper, whether that's a coach or a parent or whatever. It is, from our perspective, there's so much that needs to be done. And again, this comes back to when we were watching these games last summer, last spring, last fall. A coach and a parent have a lot of things that they're thinking about during a game, whether it's, do you have 12 9-year-olds or 10-year-olds running around the field trying to just wrangle them and get people to bat in the right order. But you also want to keep score of the game, and you also want to track and understand what's going on so that you can look back on it and understand who's getting playing time, who's getting hits, who's doing well, who needs a little bit more attention. You want to capture the information, but a lot of times with what we were seeing with apps on the market, it's basically a full-time job to do that. And not going to call it any specific products out there, but what we've noticed is some of the existing services, they do require basically a full-time effort and full-time focus, but a coach needs to do other things. A coach wants to do other things, most likely other than just score the game. And a parent wants to pay attention to the game. This is a way for people to your 80-20 principle, put in 20% of the effort and get 80% of the benefit. We are absolutely not the solution for people who want advanced stats, spray charts, detailed metrics on players. And frankly, we think that's somewhat irrelevant for the younger age group that we're really focusing on, which is sort of that 8 to 13-ish age range. Really, the general stats and common stats are going to be the most helpful for coaches to better understand what players are doing and how they're going. And it requires 1 to 2 taps instead of 5 to 8 per play, right? So minimizing complexity and making it as easy to use for the coach and the fan at home is really the main differentiator for us.
What I'm hearing, Joe, is a trifecta here. You have the goal, the mission is to help in a positive way where you're helping families and coaches. You're helping the experience, the youth baseball experience, whether that's the people at the field or the people that can't make it to the game. You're making it better. You're trying to make it more enjoyable and get more people involved. So it's more of a family, a friend. There's just more continuity with the whole experience. I love that. So the vision, the purpose, I love the 80-20 principle says enough. I don't have to go into that. You just look at the title of the podcast. What I love is that you're trying to take the 20% of an app that brings you 80% of what you need, because the other 80% is when you have to sit down and do a tutorial. You have to have somebody sit down and share with you how to do it. And they have to do 2 or 3 games looking over your shoulder. Totally. Or you have to go to YouTube and watch a 2-hour tutorial on how to do it. And even then your head is buried in that scorebook or in the app the whole game. And you really don't get the experience of being out there.
You miss out. Yeah.
Right. And then the third thing is the trifecta is the simplicity of the user experience. I'm a big UX user, UI, user interface, user experience. I just have a deep appreciation for it. And I see that with your app. So I think the trifecta right there. And I'm telling you, listeners, I'm saying this, even though Joe's on the phone, if Joe wouldn't be on here on the phone on this podcast if I didn't have vetted this out. This is something I've already vetted out, the Playmaker app and Joe and his mission. So I'm bringing the energy because I've already seen it. I've been using it. I've been talking with Joe. So that's where that energy comes from. It's not like we just, met yesterday and he called me up yesterday and said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'd love to come on." There was more to that. So, and so doing that deep dive, because I don't want to just bring something to my listeners I haven't really checked out. I got to keep my credibility and keep the show's integrity up.
Well, no, then that's the part that I really can't take much credit for at all. And my co-founder, as I mentioned before, Leland, is an incredible product designer, product developer. It's all him on the experience, and I'm so glad you noticed it. I'm so glad it's struck a chord with you and something that is resonating, because it's hard. It's really hard to create something simple. As crazy as that sounds, you have to be very, very diligent and conscious of what you're including and why. And everything in the app very specifically has a purpose. I can't tell you how many times times I've got caught up in being like, oh, what about this thing? Or like, shouldn't we add this? And it's just so great to have a co-founder who is just as talented as Leland is, to be able to filter that and understand, okay, how, to your point earlier, Bo, how does that serve the end user? How does that serve our goals? Is that just something that is a shiny object that nobody's going to use and is just going to make the product more confusing than it needs to be? So yeah, it's, I don't know if I necessarily made that process easier or harder to make it simple, but I think we have ended up with something that is extremely easy to use.
I think that's a message that we can take from, extrapolate from all the listeners, myself, yourself, Joe, is when you are looking at something, whatever it is in life, you have to be careful of that shiny object syndrome, that allure of, oh, it's got all these extra features or all this extra stuff or all these extra things. That can be very enticing. But as most of us, especially the listeners of this podcast, most are in that demographic that are old enough to be able to look back and say, man, it sounded good at the beginning. It's like a workout, oh, this, 1 hour workout with all this fancy stuff at the gym. It sounds great until you burn out because you don't, the drive or the hour. It's a full hour out of your day, 4 days a week. It sounds great. It sounds cool. Like, oh, this feature would sound great on the app or on this app. One thing that really stands out, I know Steve Jobs had his flaws. We all have our flaws, but Steve Jobs, what he said at one point in his career, was very adamant about sharing this comment that he would make, is he was more proud of Apple of the things that they said no to than the things they said yes to. He was more proud that he was able to say no to things. So as I open up the app and I'm using it, I go, okay, this is what youth baseball parents, coaches, players need. And it doesn't necessarily have a bunch of bells and whistles, but when you really stop and sit there and go and just think about it for a second, that's that extra 80% that's only going to bring me 20%. But that's 80% more time, or 4 or 5x more time for a little bit of a return. So with that said, I think moving forward, I'm making a proclamation. I think that, Joe, I think you, and speaking of Leland, that when I think of Leland, not to go off script too much, when I think of Leland, I always see that Jimmy Leland. Most of us that are listeners are old enough. Jimmy Leland, the Pirates man. I remember him sitting in the dugout, and he would with his Marlboro and stuff. So I do think that this is, I could see a bright future for you and Leland moving forward, and your team, not just Playmaker, but really helping out the baseball community. Now, the product development process, you hit on that. You talked about that product development process. It's like reverse engineering. Same with coaches. We need to reverse engineer where we want to be with our players, what we want our players and our teams to become. So you have to kind of reverse engineer everything, I think, in life and go, what is the end result? The 7 habits of highly effective people. Stephen Covey, one of his habits is begin with the end in mind. And I think with this app, you really hit that. You looked at the end user and you said, okay, this is what we want. So that helped drive your product development. Now, you've talked about who Playmaker is built for. It's built for coaches, youth baseball coaches, parents. It's for families, for players. As we wrap this up, the product development process, I'm fascinated by how products are developed and how they come about. I love reading books on product development and company development. The product development process, what went behind that, and what would you like to share about the product development process, kind of behind the scenes look at the Playmaker app?
Thanks for asking that question. It's a super important one and something that we took pretty to heart. We didn't just come out with something. We actually just released the app a few weeks into the App Store, but we did have a beta app that we were testing live last fall. And this came after, a lot of just watching baseball games and watching coaches and watching people take score in a paper scorebook and just seeing, okay, what from the paper scorebook experience can and should be translated and what maybe doesn't necessarily need to be. And we've always had this mindset towards effortlessness. And one of the key elements that we had in our original app, in our testing app last fall, was balls and strikes, which we thought was just going to be a core feature. And as we were watching people use the app, we partnered with a few actually national brand tournaments last fall, which we were so lucky to be able to pull those off and get these in the hands of coaches in live games. We saw that the balls and strikes piece was causing so much anxiety, so much stress, asking what the count is. And at the end of the day, we're thinking, who on the other side at home really cares about the count? Like, does it really matter? Is that something that is really, you're going to look back on and be like, hey, you were, it was a 2-2 count, then it became a 3-2 count or whatever. Like, that is just like such an edge case scenario and causing so much stress for the scorekeeper. So we just pulled it out. We don't have balls and strikes anymore. And what that allowed us to have is something that is literally, if there's a strikeout, you could just be paying attention to everything going on in the field. Strikeout, boom, one tap. You don't have to tap all the balls and strikes that led to that strikeout. So we've eliminated all of that and made it it very simple. And over the course of doing that product testing, we also just talked to a bunch of parents, talked to a bunch of people just in verbal conversations and start to understand what they care about. And so we have these really interesting, unique, and different features that are not necessarily part of the other products out there right now. Some of them being putting the play-by-play and the box score in front of the paywall. So for us, we don't charge at anything for live games. So if you're watching a game live, you get everything about that game immediately. Like, you don't pay for it. We don't put a paywall in front of you, because we found that people really don't feel comfortable paying for something in when it's live. It's almost an expectation that anything live, being live scored and that you're looking at the app to understand, should be free. And we were like, cool, yeah, we'll do that. And then the way where we drew the line was for anything historical stats, that's where fans would pay. This is 100% free for coaches. So coaches get all the cumulative stats, all of the inputs, all of the stat keeping completely for free. And then all the paid pieces for fans to get access to that historical stats, but then also this following an individual player and getting push notifications about their individual players. And I just want to get to this piece because I just think this feature is so cool, where you may not be able to stare at the app all game, but you may want to know what your favorite players are doing. So you can't be looking at the app and you can't go to the game. You'll get a push notification when your favorite players or your followed players get a hit. And that's outside of the app. It just gets pushed to your phone like a text message, but pushed from the app itself. And I just think that little piece is just something that just makes it fun and lets you know right in the moment when your favorite player did something cool. So the product development process has been a long one, but we're finally in the market with our live app, and a lot's gone into it. So I'm just really proud.
That push notification feature is really cool. When I first got an iPhone years ago, I wasn't sold on the push notifications, but I definitely been pushed forward on my appreciation for those push notifications. And the way you've set it up on your app, I love that. That is really cool because, again, the 80-20 baseball, it's about trying to get the results and trying to have a good experience as coaches, as parents, as players in youth baseball, really trying to get the best of the experience with the small or the lesser amount of time that we have. It's not a full-time job. It's a part-time thing, or for kids, as a coach, it's a volunteer thing. You have a day job, you have a busy life doing other things. What can you get out of the experience? How can you get all the positives or most of the positive experiences and results with the limited amount of inputs? And that's really where I think when I hear you describe this in your development process, I just think 80-20 principle. Maybe it wasn't something that you guys had at the forefront of your mindset, but definitely was driving that paradigm was driving your mission.
We say 80-20 all the time, but we say 80-20 all the time. Do you? It was just so crazy. Yeah, no, all the time. We've been saying it for the past year. Like, we talk about what is the 80% of benefit that we can give people for 20% of the effort. Like, literally, not just making that up. It's like a very real thing that we talk about all the time.
There you go. Well, that's why there's synergy right here. With that said, I think the 80-20, you leave the count out. When I first started using it, there's no balls and strikes. And as somebody who started scorekeeping back in 1985 at Dodger games, I was like, wait, there's no balls and strikes. Then I thought about it and then I go, wait a second. When I watch MLB.com or have the app open watching or following along with, say, a Dodgers game, I don't really care that it's really 1 and 2 for the most part. Maybe at the very end of the game, but even then, when does the end of the game always come down to that last pitch? Because all you really want to know is what happened. Did they get a hit? Did they get a home run? It doesn't really help you because you're not watching. You really want result. When you have the app, you want the results. And also for statistical analysis, youth baseball, you don't need to get into balls and strikes outside of maybe having another coach. Just if you want to keep an eye on the pitch totals for arm care, that could be separate. What I love when I was using it, I'm like, wait a second, there's no count, there's no ball strikes. And I'm like, oh, I can see exactly why they did this. This is a lot better. This would allow you to enjoy the game a heck of a lot more and get pretty much everything you need out of it.
You should have seen it. You should have seen the poor people using it. I felt so bad. They kept asking, what's the count, like for the entire game, because they wanted to get the scorekeeping right. And so it was like such an obvious thing to pull out. It's just anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know what? It tells me that you looked at it, and just like I didn't want to start a podcast that was the same as all the others. I wanted to bring something out and provide and share something that was different, not just to be different, but to be different in a way that could, as I saw it, to be a little bit better or more useful or serve in a different way, in a better way in a lot of cases. And I think that's what I see where you guys are coming from. It's like, well, we want to be a little different. It's in a better way. It's you reverse engineered it to go, how can we provide something and share something with the world that's not just like everything else? And that kind of leads me into like your paywall, how you push the paywall to, you basically moved it back a step. I like that thinking. Sorry. I get excited when good ideas and good products and good people come around. I just get excited when I see something that's well thought out. It's not just put together, let's slap this on the app store and see if we can make a quick buck. This is not what you guys are doing. You can tell it's a passion. It's been well thought out. You've already put so much time into this. The way you and Leland are thinking as a team could really help over the long term here with the baseball community, the youth baseball community. So I'm excited to see where this path goes. I'm excited to see people try the Playmaker app. And, I think once you try it, you're going to be like, yeah, this is something that I can use, I want to use. And it all goes back to that. What do you really need in the youth baseball? So as we wrap it up here, Joe, any parting thoughts you'd like to share?
For sure. And again, thank you for all the kind words. And before I get into that, I just want to thank you as well. I think we're both very much aligned in terms of wanting to serve the youth baseball community, and you do an amazing amount of work too. So I don't want that to go unappreciated, unnoticed, unmentioned here. So thank you so much for everything you do. For those interested in checking us out, you can visit us in a number of ways. PlayMakerApp.io is our website. You can download the Playmaker app in the App Store just by typing Playmaker Baseball or Playmaker Softball in the search tab. And finally, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at help@playmakerapp.io. Please feel free to send any ideas, comments, concerns as you use the app to that email address, help@playmakerapp.io. You can also communicate with us directly through the app, because at the end of the day, the product is never done. We are very much a minimalist experience and a simple experience, but it's never, the beauty of these products is it's never a finished product. It's always a work in progress. And so we're excited to continue to improve this thing and make it the dream scorekeeping app for baseball and softball coaches. I think that's pretty much it.
Well, I'm a huge technology fan, and of course, I'm a huge baseball fan. I think you've blended the two really well with this Playmaker app. So listeners, go check it out. Go download it. Trust me, take my word for it. You're going to like it. And with that said, Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. Really, really appreciate it.
All right, Joe, you take care. Thank you for your time.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.